Now that's real. Welcome back to Real Faith Conversations, where we try to talk about life, culture, and faith in the most genuine way possible. My name is Ryan Morris, and I'm here with Robin Daly. Robin, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Ryan. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. In this episode, we're going to talk about organ donation, some of the myths, and how it can be super important for saving lives. So, Robin, introduce yourself. Who is Robin?
Let's see. Well, I'm Robin. I'm a resident of Downingtown. I'm a member of this beautiful parish here, and I am involved in this cause because it is so near and dear to my heart, because my late husband, Charlie, was the recipient of an organ donation back in 2013.
Wow. And that is such a passion. You know, I mean, it hits home for you.
Yes.
And I can clearly, I mean, we've prepped for this show. We've talked on the phone a lot. You've emailed the parish to see. Originally, you wanted to speak at Mass and, you know, kind of get the word out or do anything, really. And I'm so glad that we were able to facilitate this for you in the media ministry and on the podcast. And
definitely.
Can you dive into sort of that why? I know you said your husband, Charlie, but why else are you so passionate about organ donation?
Well, I lost my husband, sadly, in 2019. So we had 6 beautiful years together as a result of, first and foremost, the grace of God that enabled us to get this gift. And no, Ryan, I'm starting already. That's not good.
It's okay.
I expected it, but not this early on. So he passed away from cancer, unrelated to the transplant. But in this journey, it's obviously been a difficult year and a half for me and for my stepchildren and our whole family. But I've come to have such a deep appreciation for the gift that we got. And I feel a deep calling to give back in some way and to try to channel some of the passion that I have for Charlie toward a way that I could make a positive difference. I have said it to you before, but I really feel strongly that my husband was always a beautiful person, but he really, in so many ways, he became the best version of Charlie that he always wanted to be during those 6 years. So I just feel called to give back and hope that other people get that chance to live and to love like we did as a result of increased organ donation.
Yeah. Wow. And automatically, I'm sure some of our audience members are out there thinking this. There's a lot of myths and misinformation out there about organ donation. I know I was thinking that way too back in high school before I became an organ donor. Can you talk about and address some of those myths today in this podcast?
Definitely. I'm going to touch briefly on 4 of them that I think are the biggest ones that I hear most often. And the first one is people say, I think it sounds great in theory, but I'm afraid that if, God forbid, I'm in an accident or I'm in the hospital, I'm afraid the doctors are not going to work to save my life and they'll want my organs. And it's understandable that people might think that, but I hope I can put them at ease to know that it's absolutely not the case. If you are, God forbid, in that situation, the team of doctors working to save your life have one goal and one goal only, and that's you. Yeah. So they will exhaust all options to save your life. The team of doctors working with a transplant patient have nothing to do with your doctor. So Gift of Life isn't even notified of a potential donation until all life-saving measures have been exhausted and a person has passed away. So people don't need to be worried about that. That's one of the big ones. Another one is people say, I'm too old to be a donor, or you wouldn't want my heart, I have heart problems, or, you know, I smoked back in the day, you don't want my lungs. And number one, there's no age limit on donation. The oldest living donor was 93 years old. Wow. So that's pretty amazing. Secondly, we always say leave it up to the doctors and the medical professionals to make that determination. Remember, one person can save 8 lives or enhance 75 others. So these amazing bodies that God gave us, we don't need them when our soul leaves. We don't need them. So we don't know what parts of it might be useful for someone else. Let the medical professionals make that determination. It would be a shame to miss out on that great gift because you're making an assumption that may not be true. Mm-hmm. So we don't want that to stand in the way.
Yeah, you never know what's good in your body.
Exactly.
Even if you think you're the most unhealthy person in the world.
viable, but some other part of you might be. So we don't want that to deter people. Another one I hear often is people say that the system is not fair, that rich people or famous people go to the top of the list and normal people like you and I would get shoved to the bottom and miss out. And that is absolutely not true. The criteria for getting a transplant can be both complicated and simple at the same time. In simple terms, where you stand on a transplant list has to do with how sick you are. And that is determined by lab work and imaging studies and things of that nature that are being done constantly while you're on that list. So you are literally, I can speak most confidently about a liver, but you are literally assigned a score based on your lab work that, again, you're getting done very regularly. So you could move up and down on the list, but it's based on how sick you are. Other criteria, obviously your blood type has to be compatible. It could have to do with tissue sampling, depending on the type of tissue matching, depending on the type of transplant. Size of the organ can come into play sometimes, and also geography. Obviously, that's why we work in regions. You can't have someone from the West Coast trying to donate an organ to someone on the East Coast because there would be too much time involved.
Yeah.
So
the transportation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So people, probably the reason they think that famous people go to the top of the list is because when a famous person gets a transplant, you're hearing about it in the news. You're not hearing about it when your neighbor or the guy down the street is on the transplant list, or the person in the supermarket is just had one 6 months ago. So that's part of the reason people think that. But it's a very fair system, and that's part of where Gift of Life comes in, to make sure that it is fair and that it is allocated properly.
Okay.
Last one, people say sometimes, I don't think my religion supports it. And obviously I'm sitting here at St. Peter's Catholic Church, so I know that the Catholic faith does support organ donation, as do virtually all major world religions. So that's a wonderful thing. It's really thought of in our faith as a beautiful last act of charity to give to our neighbors. I have a couple beautiful quotes from St. Francis. He said regarding organ donation, he said, "By giving of the gift of organ donation freely, we will receive our rewards from God according to the sincere and concrete love we have shown toward our neighbor." So it's a beautiful way to think about it. At the end of the day, though, if you have questions or you're unsure, it's as simple as a call to your house of worship and a meeting with your clergy to find out specifics. So that's a simple one to get clarification on. So,
yeah, and I always encourage people, too, to prayerfully discern, right?
Absolutely.
Pray about it.
Definitely.
Feel it in your heart as well. You can give a call to your house of worship, but also pray.
For sure.
That's something that I did in high school early on to discern whether this is something I'm called to do.
Absolutely.
In addition to talking to Father Fitzpatrick as well, of course.
Yes.
But, prayer is a huge part of that.
For sure. Absolutely. Could not agree with you more. And I'm speaking mostly of it's kind of hard to talk about, but deceased donation. Someone, their soul has passed on, the shell is left over. What can we donate? But there's also living donation, right? So I have 2 kidneys. I don't need both to survive. I theoretically could donate a kidney. I could even donate a portion of my liver to someone else, and that portion would grow and regenerate, as would my remaining liver. So again, amazing, the bodies that God gave us. And that is also supported as long as it's done freely, without coercion, without any kind of monetary exchange, and also that the life of the donor is given priority, because we can't, our lives were given to us by God. We can't choose to give it to someone else. So as long as our safety and our health is given priority, that is also supported by the church. So
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So there are a few others, and if people have other questions, it's honestly as simple as visiting Gift of Life online and doing all kinds of reading to address any concern or question you may have.